In October 1943, according to a persistent maritime legend, the USS Eldridge vanished from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in a blinding flash of blue light. The story alleges the ship teleported over 200 miles to a naval yard in Virginia before reappearing at its original slip. The human cost described in these accounts is horrific. Sailors driven mad, spontaneously combusting, or found physically fused into the steel bulkheads of the vessel. Proponents of this story claim the Navy achieved this by weaponizing Albert Einstein's unified field theory, manipulating gravity and electromagnetism to bend light and space around the ship. This premise ignores the basic laws of physics. In classical electromagnetism, magnetic fields do not affect the propagation of light in a vacuum. Photons carry no electric charge, meaning their paths cannot be bent by a magnetic field, regardless of its strength. Teleportation faces an even steeper mathematical hurdle. Using Einstein's mass-energy equivalence formula, we can calculate the energy required to dematerialize a 1,240-ton ship. As this calculation shows, it would require roughly 1.13 times 10 to the 23rd joules. To put that number into perspective, that single pulse of energy exceeds the total annual electrical output of our entire modern civilization by several orders of magnitude. Since the physics prohibit these events, the Philadelphia experiment serves as a case study in the meticulous engineering of a cultural myth. The operational archives of the United States Navy show the USS Eldridge was securely docked in New York Harbor. On October 28, 1943, the day of the alleged experiment. However, the Navy was conducting highly classified electromagnetic testing, using a process called degaussing to protect steel-hulled ships from magnetic U-boat mines. Steel hulls concentrate the Earth's magnetic field, creating a distortion that triggers mines. To counter this, the Navy wrapped ships in heavy copper cables and pulsed them with high-voltage charges to scramble their magnetic signatures. This rendered the ship magnetically invisible to mines, a technical term easily misinterpreted by the public. Pulsing thousands of amperes through those heavy exterior cables generated immense electromagnetic fields. In certain conditions, these bursts trigger St. Elmo's fire, a phenomenon where plasma forms in a strong electric field, wrapping the ship's hardware in an eerie, glowing greenish-blue mist. Geography explains the teleportation illusion. During the war, the military tightly controlled the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal, closing it to civilian traffic. This shortcut allowed naval vessels to bypass the open ocean, cutting a 2-day journey down to just 6 hours. To a civilian observer unaware of the canal's military use, a ship's rapid appearance in a different harbor looked like instantaneous travel. The ingredients of the legend, the word invisibility, glowing electrical auras, and impossible travel times, were part of routine naval operations that were simply mistranslated by observers. The person responsible for that mistranslation was Carl Narrative Allen. Allen was an eccentric drifter and chronic hoaxer who took these fragments of military reality and fabricated the teleportation narrative in 1955. Allen targeted astronomer Morris K. Jessup with pseudoscientific letters and a heavily annotated copy of Jessup's own UFO book. He used these notes to weave a story of naval disappearances and gravity manipulation in an attempt to frighten the author. Jessup dismissed the letters as a hoax, but the story gained a second life when an anonymous package containing Allen's annotated book arrived at the Office of Naval Research. The ONR officers who received the book were heavily involved in Project Vanguard, the Navy's early satellite program. Their focus on advanced aerospace concepts made them curious about any mention of gravity manipulation, regardless of the source's eccentricities. This curiosity led to a bizarre administrative decision. The ONAR contracted Vero Manufacturing, a military defense contractor, to produce a limited run of spiral-bound copies of the annotated book, complete with Allen's ramblings reproduced in red ink. By having a government contractor retype a madman's notes, the Navy accidentally provided a seal of official endorsement that allowed the myth to survive and mutate. When copies of this Vero edition eventually leaked, civilian conspiracy theorists interpreted the spiral-bound military document as a definitive admission of classified teleportation research. This perceived legitimacy sparked a sprawling feedback loop in literature and media, culminating in a highly successful 1984 science fiction film that introduced the legend to a global audience. The film's release prompted Alfred Bielek to step forward in 1988. Bielek claimed the movie unlocked his repressed memories of being a time-traveling physicist aboard the USS Eldridge. Bielek's fabrications expanded the core naval legend into a much larger conspiracy known as the Montauk Project, linking wartime technology to modern mind control and dimensional portal experiments. Military records debunk Bielek's claims outright. He was only 16 years old in 1943 and completely lacked any military or academic credentials. Bielek's success demonstrates how grifters can weaponize institutional blunders to expand a conspiracy theory long after the facts are disproven. While the fiction mutated, the actual science of making ships magnetically invisible continued. The Navy's research into degaussing at the Philadelphia shipyard never stopped. Engineers have now moved beyond the heavy copper coils of the 1940s. Modern degaussing systems utilize advanced high-temperature superconducting cables. They achieve an 80% weight reduction while operating at just 0.5 volts, rendering modern ships completely undetectable to mines. This quiet, highly effective engineering stands in contrast to the impossible sensationalism of the teleportation myth. The Philadelphia experiment stands as a masterclass in human psychology. It demonstrates how a mixture of defensive engineering, a lone hoaxer, and confirmation bias can build an immortal cultural myth.